Hello and welcome to Church at Home with Rachael for Monday, July 4th. Before I get going, happy Independence Day to all of the watchers in the States. I hope that this is a great day for you with lots of fireworks and apple pie and whatever it is that you like to do, hopefully with family and friends on this day. Today I'd like to talk about something that I've been thinking a little bit about since last week when I heard about the truck that they found that had 51 illegal immigrants who had died in the sweltering heat in the back of a truck trying to come into the United States. It's the idea that people are so scared or have lost so much hope in their life that they would do anything to go to a new place, to escape where they were, to go to a new country or a new place. It's absolutely appalling to me because I am blessed. I live in a country that allows me to have such incredible freedoms, lots of responsibilities that go along with those rights, but nothing overarching, nothing stifling. And I recognize that I am blessed. But I hear about people from Venezuela, from Nicaragua, from Colombia, from Mexico, people who are scared or fearful for their lives, or even people who simply want to be able to give their children the opportunity for healthcare and education and things like that. And I think of the sacrifices they are willing to make that happen, and then hear of the absolute tragedy of people dying in pursuit of that. It's so hard. It's hard to comprehend that someone would allow themselves to be locked in the back of a truck for the hope of a new life somewhere else, whether it's in the United States or Canada or a European nation. The fact that someone felt so strongly that where they were was so horrible that they would risk their lives to find something new. And I understand that immigrants and refugees are not the same thing, that refugees, there's a particular definition that goes with that. But the point is, I think, at the end of the day, that each person, whether they're a defined refugee, someone that the rest of the world recognizes that they need refuge from their country, or from their living, or people who just pick up stakes and say, even if the world doesn't recognize it, this is hell. I need to move. I need to be away from this. Either way, they are seeking refuge somewhere else because where they were is no longer life-giving or safe for them, or whether it's they perceive it that way or other people, governments and agencies and stuff see it that way. But I got thinking about the idea of spiritual refugees, those people who have been so hard done by the church or by faithful people or by denominations or even other religions. People who are, I don't know anything about people who have felt abused by the Jewish tradition or Islam or things like that. I only know about Christian stuff, and I don't know that much about it. But I do know that there are many, many people out there, especially this day and age, who state and believe that they were used or abused in some way by religion, Christianity. Folks who really are seeking refuge from what they have known. Maybe they sat in pews like these that where I am right now, and they heard messages told to them about who they were and how who they were was evil. I have heard sermons preached about the evil of homosexuality. I have heard sermons preached about the evils of divorce. My first time I ever the first time I ever read the gospel in church, I was a student at a church in London, and it was September, and I got up to read the gospel, and it was the gospel in which Jesus is talking that a man should not divorce his wife, and if he does, if they remarry, then they're committing adultery. And in the middle of this gospel, that I was so nervous reading it, a woman got up and walked out of the church. The reason she did so, I found out weeks later, she and the priest came to me to share it with me, was that she had lived in an abusive marriage for years. And when she finally had the courage to walk away from her abusive husband. What she heard, the message she heard, not from the church she was currently in, but the church she was in when she left her husband, was that she was wrong because she was causing her husband to then commit adultery. It had nothing to do with whether or not she would get remarried, but she was causing her husband to commit adultery because she had left him. She took their marriage away from him. Forget the fact that he took safety and security away from her. Dignity, that didn't matter. The church she was in when she left her husband was a church that preached that she was wrong and should have stayed. I would argue that she was a spiritual refugee. Her soul, her spirit, was in need of the life-giving message of Jesus Christ. And what she was given was a Bible thumping over the head about how she was evil because she was causing her husband to sin. Forget the fact he already was. That was my first sort of awareness coming into, I was a second-year seminary student, sort of coming into one of the pastoral issues around the Gospels, pastoral issue around how do we as priests deal with individual people and the lives that they live, the stories they have, the experiences they have in church. Because just because a person is sitting in a pew like this or watching a video like this does not mean that they are not a spiritual refugee. There are so many people who have been broken by a preacher condemning something of who they are because that preacher's opinions, and I'm going to say that was their opinion, their belief, did not line up with the gospel. I believe that the gospel of Jesus Christ is all about love. Jesus didn't condemn people. When the woman came to him, when the men brought the woman who was caught in adultery, when they brought her to Jesus, he didn't condemn her. He scratched some things in the sand, and all of a sudden, all of the accusers disappeared, and she was left there, and he said, "Go and sin no more." Should she have been committing adultery? No, of course not. But he didn't say to her, "You're damned to hell." He said to her, "Go and sin no more. Clean slate. I've forgiven you. You're good. Go and live life. Go and live a life worth living. Go and live a life filled with love." The other part of that is, where is the man? Why wasn't the man she was with dragged to Jesus? The double standard there, that's, even if it's never talked about in that gospel, even if that's never mentioned, especially when that part isn't mentioned by preachers, we have caused harm. We have caused harm to those people who are feeling like they were the ones singled out to be accused. Jesus didn't accuse. Jesus healed. He loved. He invited. He said to people, "Follow me." He didn't say to them, "Go back and take care of everything and straighten out your life, and when you're a good person, come and follow me." He said, "Follow me. Now, drop everything. Come and follow me." And what happens when you follow Jesus? He fed them. He gave them work to do. He encouraged them. He sat with them and gave them rest. He gave them a purpose. That's what the gospel is about. It's about love and purpose and being able to move forward in hope. And there are so many, many people out in our world who have been hurt by the church, who have been hurt by people who have picked up a book. This isn't a Bible, but pretend it is. Who picked up a Bible and said, "This is what it says, and you are condemned if." I don't know. I don't remember ever preaching a gospel that said you're condemned if. I remember preaching a whole lot of sermons and reading a whole lot of gospels that said you're not condemned because. Not you're condemned if you do this, this, and this. No, what I read is Jesus saying, "You are not condemned because I love you." There you go. You are not condemned because Jesus loves you. When people run away from their homes, when people run away from situations that are abusive, when they run away looking for refuge, they are refugees. When people leave the church because they have been hurt, because they have been ignored, because they have been abused, because they have been taught wrong, or because they have been lied to. They are spiritual refugees. It doesn't mean that they don't have a part of them that still wants to believe. It doesn't mean that God doesn't exist. But what it does mean is that they have had that beautiful thing called faith that maybe as a child they held so closely, maybe didn't even realize they had it. But someone took it and went like this with it and smished it up and made it something unrecognizable and said, there you go. No wonder they're spiritual refugees. No wonder people walk away from the church. Most churches aren't like that. They really aren't. But we hear about the ones who are. I don't want you to go out and think that I'm saying go out and find a church. But what I am saying is if you are a spiritual refugee, if some part of your soul, some part of your heart, some part of your consciousness is saying, I feel messed up, I feel like I've been lied to, I feel like I've been accused of something, and it doesn't feel right, keep walking. Keep walking, not away from the church, but keep walking toward a place that will receive you, who will give you refuge. That might be a completely different religion. It might be a completely different tradition. It may just be a different church down the road, or a different priest, or a different lay person, an average person in the pews who says to you, come and sit with me. Let me give you a hug and a cup of coffee. If you are a spiritual refugee, don't quit. Don't give up, because there will be a place that will receive you and will comfort you and give you all the things you need. And like any refugee, the first thing you need is not doctrine. The first thing you need is not to be educated. The first thing you need is not to hear someone say, this is exactly what you need. The first thing you need is a warm blanket and a cup of coffee, some food, and a roof over your head. Maybe a new pair of shoes. The basics. Keep looking. Keep seeking. If you can, pray about where God is leading you to, who you meet, the people that you meet, the congregation or the community you find will offer you, eventually, they're going to offer you all of those things, the truth that is in the Bible, the good news that is Jesus Christ's love for you. They're going to offer those things, but they're not going to offer them first. First, they're going to offer you a safe place to be, a drink and some food for your belly, so you're nourished in your soul, and some comfort, a warm blanket to wrap around you when you're shivering in the cold. Then, when you know that your basic needs are being met spiritually, then you can move into what comes next. And trust me, there are good people out there. There are good people out there. I would like to encourage you that, for instance, if you're watching and you're living in Halifax, go to St. Margaret of Scotland and see Reverend Ed Trevors. He is the priest in a congregation of good people. He's a good guy. He's an awesome priest, but first and foremost, he's a good guy. If you live in London, Ontario, go to the cathedral, go to St. Paul's Cathedral, and meet the dean. He's a great guy. Go in and talk to the priest there. If you live, I'm trying to think what other places I know, Halifax and London. Wherever you are, there are good people. There really are. Reach out, seek them out, ask your neighbors. But there will be some place where you can find spiritual refuge. But when you do so, try hard to recognize that the people who meet you have probably been spiritual refugees themselves. They've been hurt too. Together, you can find community where you will be safe, where you can ask questions, where you can completely be yourself. And if you're ever in Wainwright or Edgerton or Vermilion, Alberta, you can come to me, because this is what you get. I will welcome you with open arms. I will make you a cup of coffee from my Keurig, which means I can't mess it up. If I'm going to feed you, I'll take you out someplace, because my food will kill you, or I'll have my husband cook for you. But I'll offer you that warmth and that welcome, and you can ask whatever questions you want without judgment, because the only question that is ridiculous is the question that goes unasked. So if you are a spiritual refugee, don't stop looking. Refuge is out there, I promise. God bless you. You are loved for exactly who you are. Have a good day. And I will see you again tomorrow for Church at Home with Rachael for Tuesday. God bless you.